Hey, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Habit Shift podcast. I am Ian Bickle. I'm joined with Jeff Ash, Sandy Addy, and Sarah Bourne. Today, we are going to be talking about the holiday seasons, but we're going to try and just kind of generalize it a little bit. Managing your diet before, during, and after the holidays, things to be considerate of so that you can have an enjoyable, whether it's festive time or holiday, without being overly anxious around food and a lack of progress or losing progress and all of that sort of stuff. So I guess who wants to kick us off first? Should I just pick someone so nobody shouts over each other? I listened to the sleep one and there was one or two interruptions there. I know I wasn't here. But maybe you go first, Sarah.
I knew you were going to say that. I was thinking, what am I going to say?
Sorry.
Well, I guess I'll start with similar to what I put on a post that I made yesterday or the day before, in that Christmas, there is no right or wrong, or holidays. We'll talk about Christmas, but if you just think that this will apply to any other holiday or event or something that you have that you need to manage as such, it all depends where you're starting from. If you are quite happy with where you are with your goals, whether that's performance or weight loss or anything else like that, then you probably don't need to be stressing too much. But if you have been working hard all year, maybe to reach some goals, then you might want to be heading into the Christmas period without the worry that you're going to pile on loads of pounds and then have to start all over again in January. So I guess we're just here to kind of give you some ideas, some thoughts, and some ways to kind of manage those couple of weeks. And as with everything these days, like Christmas is actually only a couple of days, but the celebrations seem to start on the 30th of October these days and go right the way through to February. So, that's, I think, why people end up in with problems, because they start as soon as all the Quality Street hit I don't know if you have that abroad, but here we've got tins of chocolates that will hit the aisles in the supermarkets in October, and people start buying them and eating them. And so Christmas starts a bit earlier than, I don't know, when I was little, it used to start in the middle of December and that was it. And it was done by Boxing Day. It was like, right, okay, back to normality. So I guess we're just here to give you some survival tips.
Thank you,
Well,
Sarah.
I am. Nobody else is,
there
apparently.
you go. Well, you know what? It's we either interrupt each other or just there's that silence.
Yeah.
Either way, it's not great. Jeff,
it's a new rule.
You go, my man. We're all scared to interrupt each other, so nobody says anything now. You go, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean the holidays they're notoriously stressful for people in this particular area, and unfortunately, I say it unfortunately because if we are doing something that is sustainable over the course of the year, and we're doing something that we enjoy, then when the holidays come, we should just continue to do what we're enjoying. And if we're not enjoying it, and if it's not really something that's beneficial to us, then we may want to rethink how we're doing those things. So certainly the holidays bring in the addition of extra food and maybe types of food that we don't eat as much of at other times of the year. But that's kind of my perspective with it, is something to kind of think about in that area. If you start to freak out around the holidays, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to handle this food? Then it may be worth kind of rethinking your approach to food in general.
Yeah, I think, like, obviously kids are having advent calendars, first thing in the morning, chocolate. A lot of habits are changed pretty much from the 1st of December throughout. So obviously you work with children, Jeff. I'd imagine you're quite okay with the advent calendar, given, well, that's what I presume you would be saying.
Oh yeah, and in fact that's one of the key principles in nutrition for kids. If you want to help them not be so obsessed with sweets and those kinds of things, is to actually normalize them to the point where they just enjoy them, and it's a regular part of their daily life. When the advent calendar comes out, they don't like freak out and just eat all of it in one sitting, which you hear that all the time with parents. On the advent calendar, they were finished with it in 2 days. Um, and those kinds of things. So if throughout the rest of the year you have kind of an intentional approach to managing and dealing with sweets, then the holidays come, for kids and even yourself, and it's just another day where there might be some extra sweets available, but you don't go into this like crazed mode where you just are eating all of the sweets, because you get them anytime you want them. So it's not this out of the blue. You aren't just bombarded with them.
Okay, cool. And Sandy, how about yourself? Anything to add, my dear?
Not really. I was sort of just going to go along the same lines as what Sarah was saying about, I guess it all just depends on what your goals are and what you've sort of been doing leading up to Christmas, whether your goals are, you've already been dieting sort of thing, or, if you haven't really been thinking about it. But then at this time of year, I guess in December particularly, is when people start to think of what they're going to do next year in usually weight loss. So, December seems to be the time where they'll go, well, I'll fill up now and just sort of, go to parties, drink a lot, eat a lot, because it's, going to be like their last time they're ever going to eat type of thing before they begin, their weight loss journey on the 1st of, or not the 1st of January, the 2nd of January, where they think that they're going to have to cut everything out. So, but yeah, it's, I guess, like Sarah said, it's just dependent on what your goals are, what you've currently been doing, and, how you're going to deal with that. So I guess we could sort of talk about, firstly, about the lead up to Christmas. What sort of, things would you be keeping in mind during the month of December, the last few weeks leading up to Christmas?
I think, to be fair, if we can take it all the way back to the last few years before like Christmas, that's probably where it all stems from. And, if I think people were to compare year on year, it's potentially the same story every year, and for some reason this year is going to be different, which everybody may say to themselves. Yet they said that last year and potentially the year before. So I think we just got to take this big picture overview of everything that's going into it. And, you said like people will be already planning on, starting January the 2nd. But, what happens if the 2nd lands on a Wednesday? I don't know. Do they have to wait till the Monday now? Because you can't start things on a Wednesday.
No,
crazy. Imagine it's a Friday. This is just silly. But I think what we're trying to get at is like avoiding that Monday mentality. And we said we want this to we don't just want to talk about Christmas as just this being, hey, there's magic Christmas diet. We want to almost get across like a certain perspective and mindset and a shift in terms of how you think about your diet. And we want you to have a diet, not be on a diet.
Yeah.
So yes. That would be my thing. It would be like, listen, we need to address the emotions, the behaviors around like your mindset around this time of year, because inevitably, if you're trying to be on something's you're going to slip, you're going to make a mistake, and then you're going to go down like this emotional roller coaster. And I think like me, I've worked in the fitness industry years. We all know clients, maybe you stop getting leads, people stop inquiring. For me, in December, if somebody starts working with me in December, I'm like, yes, you are going to be successful. That is the mindset shift I want. If a client says to me, I might wait till January. I understand why. And of course, like, it's up to me to maybe work on that relationship so next Christmas they understand. So I absolutely understand from a commercial standpoint, but from a behavioral one, if people say, you know what, I want to get me ducks somewhat in a row now, so when Christmas comes, I know some sort of basic psychological stuff that can allow me to mitigate the Christmas or holiday anxieties.
Probably depends how social you are as well. I mean, like, well, especially at the moment in how the current climate is. I don't know how you guys are, but I mean, I've only got one. I'm doing a client Christmas do next week. And other than that, it's just the Christmas 3 days, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day. I haven't really got an awful lot planned. So for me, I'm not really concerned about it at all. Like on the meal out I'm going for, which is actually a Thai meal anyway. It's just one meal out of the month. So my mindset is I'm going to have what I like, but that would be what I'd have at any other time of year as well, because I'm a bit boring. I'll always have Thai green chicken curry. And desserts in those sort of places aren't great. So, the most I'll probably do if everyone is drinking, I might have a gin and tonic to celebrate with everyone. But other than that, it's just a normal meal out for me. And then when it comes to Christmas, I really look forward to my roast dinner on Christmas Day, but that's usually enough. We tend to have it in the middle of the day, and that means we'll spread out dessert until later on. So we probably only have one meal. So whilst that meal might be a higher calorie meal than if we were having 3 meals, actually spread it across the day and it's not a big deal. So I think you're right, Ian. It's totally how you approach things and your mindset. For me, I know that I'll have chocolate when I feel like it. So Christmas chocolates aren't a big deal. Alcohol, I'm not a big drinker. So when it comes to Christmas, I'm not going to go overboard and think, oh, now it's Christmas, I'm going to suddenly start drinking. It's just how you think about things. So I guess if you are really, really social and you've got loads of things, loads of work parties and do's to go to, then you've got to be a bit more careful in your approach than what I've just suggested. But that's down to how much you've got going on.
Yeah, that kind of is one of the things that is an important part of what I talk to parents about and also individuals, and that's this idea of kind of normalizing these different kinds of foods throughout the year, like you were talking about, so that when you do have 10 work parties come up in over the course of a month, or whatever, party, social gatherings and work parties and all of these different things, sweets, alcohol, decadent foods, all of these things are all normal part of your day-to-day life. And so when you see them, you don't have this mentality of like, oh my gosh, I haven't had this in a year, and then going off the rails around them, because you have cookies throughout the year, and so, oh, these are special, I'm going to enjoy these. And you've already worked on different things throughout the year, in and around food, to where you're so used to eating in a way that makes you feel comfortable, where you're not focused on the calorie content of things and this and that you're going to end up eating the same way around those foods in the holidays too. You might eat a little more than you normally do, but you don't freak out about it. You just sort of naturally navigate that environment in a comfortable way. And so that's ultimately what I think really anybody, regardless of whether you're trying to lose some weight or whether you're tracking your calories or doing intuitive eating, I mean, that's kind of the ideal way to be able to head into any holiday or vacation time or whatever it is that you're doing, is that you go into it with the mentality, it's just another time. There's going to be different foods available, and I'm going to handle it the same way that I handle every other day.
Yeah.
But Ian touched on a really good point before, is that about mindset and what you were just saying,
Mm-hmm.
Jeff. Some people just don't know how to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So they're going into it with, not a very good mindset. And when Ian was saying before about, clients waiting to, start those weight loss journeys at the beginning of the year, rather than, doing it now. That's a really valid point, is that if they do decide to, start a weight loss or coaching or whatever, this is probably the best time to do it, because they have, that mindset that they'll be able to get through it, because they can. And that's the whole sort of point of dieting and having a good relationship with food, is because you know how to manage Christmas, you know how to manage birthdays, you know how to manage, weddings, anything, any type of function. Because people tend to make that excuse of, oh, I'll just wait till, such and such is over. I'll wait till Christmas is over. I'll wait till New Year is over. But you need to learn how to manage those events, throughout every year. So, starting now before Christmas is, I think it's actually the best time to start.
Something
Well, I think that's a lot. Oh,
sorry,
go ahead,
Jet. Something that I do say to clients is like, first and foremost, there's nothing wrong with weight gain. It's totally normal for I will be gaining some body fat probably over Christmas. I will indulge. I won't overindulge. I'll indulge appropriately, I guess could be the term. Because yes, there will be more food, there will be more like alcohol consumed. But that's totally normal. And if we're taking a look across the entire year, what we're going to probably find is like your happy weight will kind of fall within a range. And that range could be like 10 pounds. It could be more. So I think a lot of people just don't understand their range. They don't understand their like kind of livable weight. So me personally, I think when people come into the Christmas and maybe they gain 5 pounds and they've got this long-term weight loss goal, it's like I say to them, listen, next Christmas you're going to gain the same 5 pounds, but you might be 2 stone lighter. So you've got to kind of get them to think that way, of just thinking, right, well, yeah, like it's totally acceptable. And if people go into things with a certain degree of acceptance and give themselves, like, we're talking about permission to eat and permission to enjoy like it for what it is, have a drink, get a bit merry, but it doesn't need to trickle over into their entire week or the entirety of December just because of like a few social events. Just, do what you do normally. So be physically active, eat whole single ingredient foods, like, pay attention to your appetite. As Sarah said, and I'm very similar to Sarah, on Christmas Day, usually it is like, we'll have that meal and we're done. We'll have a few drinks. And by the time we've had that meal and a few drinks, I'm that full, I just don't want to drink anymore. But people, Christmas Day, they wake up, they're like, right, bottle of champagne or something first thing in the morning, which is absolutely fine. It's just for you to recognize like what your happy go-to is, and what, like, you maybe need to just ask yourself, is this acceptable? And if the answer is yes, then enjoy it for what it is, because it's only a little short period of time.
That's the thing, isn't it? There's no right or wrong. If somebody is happy with gaining a stone over Christmas, if that's their choice, then nobody is gonna, that's down to you. The problem is more the all or nothing mindset, where people are like, okay, I've been out to a party last night, went overboard, that's me done now till January, I'm just going to carry on. Whereas, like you've just said, Ian, if you just go, right, okay, next day's just a normal day, let's just eat normally, then if you approach it that way, then you've got damage limitation, haven't you? And it is, there's nothing you should or shouldn't do. You have permission to do whatever you want. But I think what frustrates me is the people and the clients I've had in the past that will have this set idea of, right, no, I'm not going to do it this Christmas, I'm not going to go crazy. And then when it comes to it, they do go crazy, and then they're full of guilt and remorse and all that in January. That isn't healthy. That's not a great attitude to have. If you're going to make those choices, own them. Go, okay, do you know what? So what? I'm going to put on some weight. I'll deal with that. that's not a problem. The problem is the remorse and guilt and shame if that's what you decide to do, and go, oh, I wish I hadn't done it now, and now it's going to be hard, and that kind of attitude. That's what we don't want. That's what we don't want to see in January.
Yeah, that's so detrimental to people's psychological health, mental health, all of those things, that guilt and shame around something that shouldn't be a moral issue. I mean, eating more food than you needed is not necessarily, I mean, it's not a moral issue. You didn't kick a puppy or anything like that. And it's something like, something like, one thing that I think people don't don't often realize. I know the four of us talk about this with people, but dietary compensation. Our body makes up for the mistakes that we make in eating. So if we eat more than we should have, and by should have, I mean we just don't feel good afterwards. So let's just say we eat so much that we're like, I did not feel good. And our body makes up for that later if we allow it. Now, if we feel bad about it and beat ourselves up and say, well, I already ate this amount, so I might as well, just F it. I might as well just go wild over the holiday or over the weekend or whatever the case may be. Instead of just saying, okay, well, I ate a whole lot more than my body needed yesterday or in this meal, and understanding that it's going to compensate for it later by probably not being so hungry later in the day. Like Ian was saying, you have that big roast dinner and that you're pretty much done for the day. Unless you start beating yourself up and say, oh, I shouldn't have had that. I shouldn't have had that at dinner. Oh, well, I might as well just eat 5 pieces of pie instead. And then the next day you're like, oh, I ate so much yesterday. Oh, I'll start on January 1 and that kind of thing. And so that whole mentality is just so negative on our psyche and everything. Whereas if we just say, yeah, my body will make up for it later by not being so hungry. And if I'm listening, like I think Ian was talking about hunger and stuff a minute ago. If you're listening to that as the general way that you eat, then your body's going to naturally make up for it. And that's that whole set point thing that you were also talking about, Ian. Your body's going to drift back down, if nothing else, even if you're not intentionally dieting. And that's one of the key principles kind of in intuitive eating, is this idea that, we have this set point, and if we're honoring those signals that our body's giving us, we don't really need to worry about it. If we go up or down a little bit in weight, our body's probably going to just drift back to that set point range anyway, if we allow it to.
You know what? People just so, especially women, I guess, but men as well, are just so focused on the scale weight. So, they'll have, say, Christmas lunch or dinner, whatever you have, and then the next day they've jumped up, a good 2 kilos because of, what they've had. They think that, everything's spoiled, and they haven't. It's too much focus on the next day of that scale weight. And you've just got to get that out of your head, because obviously, yes, the scale is going to go up the next day, but you've got to understand that it's just because you ate that big meal, that doesn't mean you've ruined everything that you've done, in the last whatever few weeks, months, or whatever. And not to focus on that. Like you said, everything will just sort of work back out, later on. Just go back to the way you were eating before. It's just one day, one day. Yeah. Unless you continue that day, continue a day after day after day. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is what makes this podcast different. And we recognize that a lot of people's issues are kind of largely psychological, behavioral, emotional around food. Like the reality is, when you work with a professional, they're going to kind of help you understand you and your thoughts and your feelings. And we've done it with numerous people. Ali, a client, saying, oh, have you heard this before? And I'll be like, yeah, this isn't uncommon. Take a look around at everybody who's somewhat doing the same thing. All the slimming groups will be kind of starting to dwindle and down week on week, but then their subscriptions will go through the roof next month in January. Or in the lead up to summer or something, they'll see peaks and troughs, and that's just because of like culture level behaviors that humanity have. And I think if you want to be a bit different, you have to start thinking a little bit differently outside the box and recognizing that maybe what everybody's doing and maybe what you've been doing in the past is wrong. And you know, it takes a little bit of kind of bravery, because at least with that stuff, everybody knows what to expect. Whereas with what we're talking about, I think people need to understand that a common sense approach needs to be taken towards this. There is no right answers. Sorry, there's a lot of gray area, but you need to have the intelligence, the emotional intelligence, the intuition to be able to make the best decisions given on the circumstances you're in.
Another point is, like, with Christmas and holidays as a rule, they don't just happen. You don't just wake up tomorrow and it's Christmas.
It's Angel Gabriel just come into your living room there. It's like, oh.
Go to the light, Sarah.
Divine intervention. It's all.
Yeah.
You know, it takes planning. We have to buy the food that we're going to eat. You know, unless you turn up to someone's and they've prepared it all for you, then actually that's probably easier, because you just got what's there and you can choose what you want to eat. But you know, if you're doing Christmas, then you have to shop for that food, so you're making those choices ahead of time. So you know, if you are wanting to head in a mindset of I'm not going to go to excess, then don't buy too much. You know, it's quite easy. Buy what you need. You know, I'm guilty of that before, and you end up like with stuff you don't want. I mean, most people, I think, you know, you really enjoy Christmas Day. Boxing Day's great. You know, come a day or two later, you're like, oh God, turkey again. You know, it's like, let's have something different. So for the last couple of years, we've literally just bought enough of what we need for those specific days, and then we're just back to normal eating, and I'm like quite glad of it as well. I want something spicy or something different in taste. So you know, if you really want, you know, people go, oh, I'm still eating my chocolates in January. Like, how much chocolate did you buy? You know?
We still have our chocolates in like August. Sometimes I'll get given a crate of beer and like it'll last us for like months, because I can have like one or two, or maybe there might be a day in the summer or something, or a few days in the summer I'll be like, oh, I fancy a few beers. But like, just because they're there, I think like having exposure is a good thing, like being exposed to chocolate, being exposed to alcohol, so you're not in this avoidance mindset when inevitably you're going to, like, it's going to be put in front of you and you just can't handle it. So when it's there all of the time, so many people are like, I want it out the house. Sometimes they'll just eat it out the house so they can start again on like, you know, whatever, Monday the 8th of January, you know, just so they can kind of like, you know, almost feel like they cleanse the house. And it all comes down to self-worth. And, you know, I'm on a detox and all of that sort of stuff, which isn't a thing, by the way. So what we need to do is, like, realistically is just, hey, yeah, don't go over the top, just get enough. And I think Jeff talks about it with the intuitive approach, and we certainly do. Like, a lot of people will maybe get foods that doesn't satisfy them on an emotional level, or maybe getting diet foods or something like that. And it's just, you know what, like, enjoy Christmas for what it is. Like, my mom makes, like, ever since childhood, made like little sausage rolls, and they're amazing. And like, I look forward to them every year, and I can have one or two and be like, you know what, that's amazing. Like, yes, they're not quote unquote healthy, they're not going to be low calorie, they're not like some special organic pastry and grass-fed pork or whatever's in them, but you know what, like, they're lovely and they warm my soul, and like, I'm going to enjoy that. And every year I'm going to enjoy that, because sometimes there is I love Christmas. It's such a special feeling in the air, especially on Christmas Day, seeing everyone. Yeah, I'm going to overeat, yeah, I'm going to have a drink, but that's it, you know. But like other things, I'll still go for a walk with my dog on a morning. and on the evening or afternoon, like just doing what I normally do, and like obviously not feeling restricted, a big part of that.
And that's the nice part of Christmas and food with Christmas is traditions like that, isn't it? You know, you said your mum's always made that. I mean, that would be so detrimental to your mental health if you didn't enjoy and have that. And like, I'm sure lots of people listening have got their own family traditions with things that they do. And nobody's saying that you shouldn't do those, but like that would almost be like you going, oh, I've not had a sausage roll all year, I'm going to eat like 40 of them because I'm not going to get them till next year. But you don't, you just have enough that satisfies that feeling of Christmas and the family thing, and probably the love and a care your mum's put into making it, and that is all part of it. And that is the reward, isn't it? It's not how much can I eat because I'm not going to get it for a year.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think,
and that's that mentality that I think so many people go into holidays or really any event with, and it backfires. I mean, it seems like, hey, if I restrict myself from these foods that I feel like I'm addicted to, or that I feel like I don't have any control around, then that's the way to manage them, and it inevitably just backfires. You know, when you don't have sweets throughout the year because you think they're unhealthy, and you only have them at holidays, you're going to hit the holidays. And like Ian was saying, he still has chocolates in August, and that's because he knows if he wants chocolate on any given day, whether it's for breakfast, lunch, dinner, Saturday, a Wednesday, whether it's a rest day and he's not even training, whether he's not even going to go out and walk, he's still, if he wants chocolate, he's going to eat it. And it's so normal that when Christmas comes, it's just, oh, that's kind of nice, and he just enjoys some different chocolate, but there's no reason to go off the rails with it. And it feels so much better emotionally too. I mean, I think all of us can attest to the fact when we've seen a client kind of shift in their mindset around that, they start to enjoy the food they're eating more, because they don't feel like they have to eat it all in one sitting, like beyond the point of actually enjoying it. So you eat, I mean, who enjoys eating a half a gallon of ice cream? I mean, by the time you're part way, a relatively small amount of the way through it, you're not really enjoying it anymore. You're just kind of on autopilot.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I think like for me with like a lot of the clients is like, the biggest kind of kickback I get from a satisfaction point of view is just seeing them like almost, it's like the Matrix, and the like take themselves out of the illusion that is being portrayed through, as we talk about diet culture, and all of a sudden they're like, actually I can see how I can navigate this, and they've just never been taught, and like that's kind of our role to teach people, like obviously they've got this podcast, but if people want more like individualized stuff and they value that, and they're like, you know what, I'm sick of spinning my wheels here. It's really having a negative impact on everything in my life and the relationships with the people within it, and more importantly, myself. And that's something that we need to work on, is that self-development. It's not just an educational thing around maybe food. It could be, it could not be. I think for the most part, the majority of people know what good, quote unquote, good, and what's quote unquote bad, but partly that's the issue that we're trying to resolve as well. So we're trying to go a little bit beyond the surface that you may not get through your typical slimming groups, or even your like bog standard personal trainer. Like if your issues are a weight management one, more burpees aren't going to sort it out, and like acute restriction.
No, absolutely. And I thought about the advent calendar thing that you mentioned at the beginning, and I remember within, and it's not so common now because I think, it's more the other way around. It would probably be, if you want to eat 4 advent calendars, do so because you've got unconditional permission. But before it was like, oh, you shouldn't be having an advent calendar if you've got goals to reach and everything. And like, I never understood it because like you're talking about one tiny little chocolate. I mean, I don't actually know how many calories there are in one of those chocolates, but there can't be very many. 25 to 50 probably maximum in one of those little Cadbury's chocolate things that you get. Like, if people are obsessing over that, then they've got much bigger problems than opening an advent calendar once a day. And I think all kids have eaten everyone. My son definitely used to when he was younger. You give him an advent calendar and he'd just go through the whole lot. And then I go, okay, well, you've got nothing for the rest of the month now then, have you? You kind of ruined it, but at the end of the day, that was your choice. And now he's grown up, he doesn't do it. I still buy him an advent calendar, but he'll do it one a day. I've got one, haven't even opened any yet, actually. Just on this topic, I've got, what are we? I've got 9 days, so I've got catch up to do. But that's almost the point. Because I've got other chocolate around, I'm not actually that bothered, and I've put it in another room and I haven't even thought about it. So, it's how you approach things mentally, isn't it? It's like, if you are going to obsess over eating a chocolate, or that one chocolate's going to lead you to eat way more, then you really got other things that you need to address first, and that's when you really need somebody to help you.
Definitely. I mean, obviously, we're like, if people are in the position of maybe feeling a bit anxious, they've quote unquote been good thus far, losing weight. Like, I don't know, what would your suggestions be? Like, I think we've probably covered them, but if we had to start like wrapping things up and summarizing, I don't know, you want to go first there, Sandy?
What was the question?
Summarizing, wrapping things up, like what would what would you be advising like one of your clients if they were speaking to you, or anybody really?
I think we've touched on it a little bit, is just trying to keep everything as normal as possible and keeping your same routine as what you would normally do leading up to Christmas. And even after Christmas Day is usually the day that you're going to overindulge. Maybe, it could be Boxing Day, maybe, a party. But, it's really only one day. So, you don't have to do anything different. Just do what you normally do and move on. Keep yourself active, go back to your routine the next day. That's my advice. And just on the advent calendar thing, I actually like the advent calendar for kids. I always gave my kids advent calendars because I think it also teaches them that it's okay to have chocolate. And, having one a day was enough to satisfy them. They didn't have to have it all in one go. So, I think it's a really great teaching tool myself.
Yeah, because actually, even from like my son's point, he learned a lesson from that when he ate the lot in one go. When his sister was opening one every day, he didn't have one anymore. So
yeah, exactly,
it's a lesson to learn, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember as a child, I actually opened my ad. So on a Saturday, I would go to my granddad's and we'd get sweets, and it usually be a tube of Smarties. So I had a little treasure chest, and I'd pour the Smarties in. But throughout December, I'd put each day's advent calendar chocolate in there. Some sort of willpower as a child. I don't know how I'd done this. Like, next level. This is why maybe I was so good at bodybuilding, delayed gratification and all that. So I had a treasure chest with Smarties in and like advent calendar chocolates in. And I remember giving one to me, like offering me granddad one. And, I was really angry when he picked out an advent calendar chocolate. It was like, get a Smartie. Like, I was upset. But that's just my little advent calendar story as a child. I couldn't have been like 10 or something like that. I remember that.
I would just say, I guess mine would be, own your own choices. Nobody's going to force you into doing anything. You are an adult and you can make your own choices. So whatever you choose will have a consequence somewhere along the line. and just own those consequences as well. Whatever you do, there's no right or wrong, it's all down to you. So whatever choices you've made come January, the result will be there, and just be okay with that, whatever that may be. And if you want to avoid going too crazy, just be mindful, have some chocolate, have whatever you want, but don't go to excess. That doesn't actually make it any better, does it? If you actually enjoy what you're eating and think about what you're eating, you're going to get much more out of it. And have an amazing time. It's a time for family. It's not just about food. It's a time for spending time with your loved ones, especially hopefully this year, where we actually will get to do that legally. And just have fun and don't stress over it all.
How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I think those are all really good points. Well, I'll just share one thing that I'm going to be sharing with all of my clients, since everybody that I'm working with now is using intuitive eating, and that's the approach that I'm using with them. And this is something that Evelyn Tribole, who's one of the founders of, or one of the people that developed the intuitive eating, that's capital I, capital E, and that wrote that book. And this one, she called this, in the short article, she calls it the Intuitive Eater's Holiday Bill of Rights. And I think it's really applicable to the clients that you all work with too, because you're very much in the behavior change and positive relationship with food mentality, as opposed to like strict diet and suck it up and stick to your plan kind of an approach. And these quick points are: you have the right to savor your meal without cajoling or judgment or discussion of calories eaten. Just enjoy, or the need to exercise to burn it off. And then the second one is you have the right to enjoy second servings without apologizing. I think that's a really important one. You have the right to honor your fullness, even if it means saying no thank you to dessert or a second helping. And those are often things that I think people sort of overlook in this, is that, yeah, you know what, you have unconditional permission to eat as much as you want. You can eat seconds, thirds, fifths, tenths if you want, but you also have permission to just say, no, I don't want any more, even if everybody else is still eating. It's not your responsibility to make someone happy by overeating, even if it took hours to prepare a specialty holiday dish. You have the right to say no thank you without any explanation when you're offered more food. And you have the right to stick to your original answer of no, even if you're asked multiple times. And you have the right to eat pumpkin pie for breakfast. So I think those kind of, when you're starting to think in terms of these principles here, it can be really helpful to go into the holiday with that mentality that, giving yourself unconditional permission to eat, which is a key principle of intuitive eating. But that also means that you're also giving yourself permission to say, nah, no, I'm good. I don't need any more. And I had a client this past week just share with me how she did exactly that. And it was really exciting. She was able to say no to a particular meal. It surprised her partner, who was actually very supportive and everything. It didn't bother them, but they were just surprised that normally she would have eaten it, even though she wasn't in the mood for it, because she felt like she should. And instead she honored her hunger and how her body was feeling, and she didn't.
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? A lot of people do eat to please others, don't they? Or eat, potentially use it as an excuse as well, sometimes. And other people will try and persuade others to eat because it makes them feel better. So, it just goes back to owning your choices, doesn't it, really?
It's your responsibility. And I think if anybody takes offense, I think that's more to do with them than you. Mm-hmm. And I think, like, if you are trying to change the kind of the norms of your life, then you're going to maybe have to establish a slightly different identity. Maybe the past you was a people pleaser, did just do things for other people ahead of your own, maybe feeling like, not being selfish and all of that sort of stuff. Like, at the end of the day, it's you that are suffering. So, put yourself first and enjoy it, absolutely. But it has to be like, there has to be a decision along the way where you're like, right, no, I don't want to be this person to a certain degree anymore, like this serial diet or this emotionally irrational like person in these situations. Like, you know, ourselves, go out, enjoy it without like beating ourselves up. It is what it is. Get on with it. Don't have to do anything you don't want to do, and then move on with your life.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think that it's a good illustration of just how, when you work on some of these things, you know, with a good coach, like I think all of us are, it often carries over into so many other areas of your life. You know, if you are a people pleaser and you're always letting others dictate how you're going to act, respond, handle different situations, you know, often food can be an area where that happens as well. And when you start to work on it in the area of food, saying no to things that you know you're just not, it's not really right for you, establishing boundaries there, it can trickle down and carry over into so many other areas of your life. And that's why I think we see people, when they make these changes in the area of their nutrition and their physical activity and those kinds of things, that they end up thriving in other areas of their life also, which makes it well worth getting a good coach who may be in this area. You know, we sort of are in the area of nutrition, and I say that in quotes, but we all know that so much of the work that we do ends up not even having anything to do with food. That's just usually issues with food tend to be a symptom of greater issues, and so I think that's something to think about too.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, I think we've covered that one nicely. But I think if anybody does have any further questions or comments, they can post them in the Facebook group. They can send us an email at thehabitshift@gmail.com. They can reach out us to individually. You know, you just put our name into Instagram or Facebook, and you'll find us. But no, I think for us, this will be the last podcast of the year. We're going to take a little bit of a break. You know, everybody does have busy times over Christmas, so we thought we'd come back next year with a bang. But you might get some bonus episodes, but I'm not promising anything, because health, fitness, nutrition, mindset, behaviors, they all still matter over the course of the next few days. So wishing everybody a big happy Christmas and New Year, and we'll see you in 2022.
Wait, we're going backwards? Oh no!
I was thinking, really?
I don't want to go back to 2020.
2022.
No, let's do it again.
That Christmas sucked, didn't it?
Yeah.
What a sign off there by myself.
Yeah. Cheers for that. We're going back in a time machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, once again, thank you for listening, everybody. Please share the podcast around. Please, you know, keep listening. You know, we hope it's helpful. Leave us a rating, a review, and it helps us enormously to spread the message that needs spreading.
Yeah. Happy Christmas, everybody. Take care.
Christmas.